He slimed me. You're probably wondering, as the thing is literally falling in my head right now, what this whole thing was about. Well, this actually has nothing to do with Ghostbusters, perchance, but hey, you could make the argument that this kind of is. But, yesterday, I put up another installment of my 1989 Year in Television video, and I talked about You Can't Do That on Television. I was supposed to show this off during the segment about You Can't Do That on Television until I realized not too long afterwards that I completely forgot to show that footage there. So, this has nothing to do with the movie stop episode you're about to, with the time about the movies you're about to watch. I'm getting my shows mixed up here, but I just wanted to show that footage off here so I could prove to you guys that I was not lying. See, I at least remember that from You Can't Do That on Television. Whenever someone says, I don't know, they get slimed all over them. I actually got this online after one of the Nickelodeon NFL games where they were giving this out. I think it might have been the Broncos-Rams game of 2022, but hey, nevertheless, hey, there you go. That's my little bit of remembrance of You Can't Do That on Television, as I can't see right now, but let's go ahead and move on if I can see through the next one here. There we go. So that has nothing to do with what you're about to watch here. But with all that said, welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. We are taking a look at the 3 films that make up July 15th, 2016. And there's no bigger new release this weekend than the reboot of Ghostbusters, which was the infamously controversial reboot that should not have been controversial whatsoever, just because it's women in the 4 Ghostbusters leading roles instead of men. That's literally what the whole controversy was. Like, it didn't matter who it was. You know, Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, and Kate McKinnon are all great comedic actresses, but when you put them in a Ghostbusters movie, it apparently made the internet go like, oh, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And yeah, this movie in particular was really the moment when toxic masculinity really began to take shape. I mean, keep in mind, this was a year and a half before Star Wars The Last Jedi, which was another one of those examples of a movie getting screwed over by toxic masculinity and kind of ruining the plans for what they were going to do with Star Wars overall. But this was the first movie that had that notorious controversy that sadly is never going to go away. Like, the whole idea of toxic masculinity, it's here to stay solely because of this movie in general. But yeah, it was one of those things where it was just like, you know, people online were already ready to hate on it, even though this director had made several movies beforehand, including Spy, The Heat, Bridesmaids, all successful movies. But no, once we bring in Ghostbusters, all of a sudden it's just kind of like, nope, we got to call this one out. And so let's talk about this bandwagon here, because, you know, I did a whole thing the week this was coming out, because I remember this vividly. I remember, you know, I remember saying that I was not gonna jump on the hating Ghostbusters bandwagon just because it's women, and it's the 4 women in the role here, in the roles of these actresses in general. What am I even saying here? It's these 4, and let me start over again. This thing really does make you not think straight, because I've had this on a couple of times in other videos, and afterwards, like, because I have it on and the fan is over being pushed off to the side, I sweat a lot from this in particular. I do clean this, by the way, but yeah, let's just go ahead and get rid of that right now. Why do I even need to throw it on the bed? I don't know. But what I'm trying to say here is that I was not going to be one of those people that was already going into this ready to hate it. I was not going to do that. I was going to give it its day in court. I saw it, and I'm here to tell you that yes, it's the worst Ghostbusters movie, but at the same time, it's not a bad movie. Even 10 years later, it's not a bad movie. In fact, I will go as far as to say that there is no bad Ghostbusters movie. So, I didn't even give you the plot for this yet. Following a ghost invasion of Manhattan, paranormal enthusiast Aaron Gilbert and Abby Yates, played by Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, nuclear engineer Jillian Holtzman, played by Kate McKinnon, and subway worker Patty Tolan, played by Leslie Jones, band together to stop the otherworldly threat. And yeah, my overall impression on Ghostbusters is, it's fine. It's alright. I enjoyed it. And, by the way, I'm looking to my left, and this is my left. And, yeah, Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are still here on Blu-ray and DVD. Nobody's taking them away from you. Nobody is coming in and telling you, this is the new Ghostbusters that you have to watch, because you're never going to see these other ones again. Yeah. Ghostbusters is still very much alive and well. The first 2 movies are. I mean, the original Ghostbusters still hold up well. Even Ghostbusters 2, it's not as good as the first film, but you know what? it's still a good movie. The first two movies have many flaws to them overall. There are scenes in both movies that serve no real purpose to the story going on, and seems more like filler, especially with the second movie, being kind of a straightforward remake of the first film, among many other problems with it, but they're still enjoyable movies, and a lot of that is in this movie. There are a lot of flaws to this film, but it's still really good. It's still an enjoyable movie. It's Paul Feig. The guy does not make a whole lot of bad movies. Even a movie like The Heat, which I didn't like, still works a little bit because of the chemistry between Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. One of the most important aspects of Ghostbusters that you have to get right to make it work is the chemistry between its four main actors. I mean, the chemistry by Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson is the glue that holds those movies together in the original film. When they come back in Ghostbusters Afterlife, that's great. When Ghostbusters Frozen Empire has them back there, it seems like fan service, yes, but it's still fun. Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones have a lot of big shoes to fill, and when it comes to that aspect, they do succeed in capturing that magical chemistry you need for this to work. They wouldn't have been my first choice to play those characters. I mean, back then, I had, when they were first announced this, I had several ideas of who could possibly be the Ghostbusters. Jennifer Lawrence is an example. Alison Brie, Anna Kendrick, Abby Elliott, Cecily Strong, Lena Dunham, Amy Schumer, maybe even Kerry Washington. Those are the possible choices I would have went with, but the four main characters do work really well. I think the standouts actually were the two people everyone thought that they were not going to be that great. Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones were actually the real standouts in this. Every one of them has a good, funny moment in this movie. The rest of the cast overall is really good. I like that Chris Hemsworth finally got a chance to show everybody that, hey, he can be funny. There are lots of elements in this where he's funny. That bit there in that commercial there, that's not one of his better moments, but at least he's the highlight. He's actually been the second time. This is the second time in the last year and a half he's been a highlight of an 80s comedy remake, the other being last year's infamous Vacation. I thought the action sequences were all nicely done. The visual look of the ghosts look really good. I mean, they look like the effects have been modernized in a way. And yeah, the old school effects still work in the old Ghostbusters movies, but you know what? This is something that you expect to see in Ghostbusters. I like the final sequence with the bad guy, played very well by Noah Casey. He unleashes his evil plan to turn the city of New York into and it's 1976, and you see a ton of 70s references. It's a cool concept for your climax. The action is nicely shot too. I can see what's going on. It's not like Batman v Superman where I have no idea what the hell is happening. And I do like the fact that the Ghostbusters are basically fighting their own logo because the bad guy turns into essentially the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but instead of the Marshmallow Man, it's the logo, even though the Marshmallow Man is in here. Which Rowan turns into once he finishes taking over Chris Hemsworth's body. That's a cool idea to have them fighting their logo. I mean, it's a cool concept, and I think it's played out very nicely. I think it is very well done overall. And, yeah, I thought it worked. I know a lot of people were getting on them because of the fact that they were fighting the logo. And it's just like can't win with anybody online. I've learned that now in the many years I've been doing this online. But there are complaints about the movie that I didn't like. As good as the casting is in this movie, shockingly the biggest miscasting in this is Cecily Strong, who plays the mayor's assistant. He's played very well by Andy Garcia, and I think Strong is a very funny comedian. She's been great on Saturday Night Live. She's basically the female equivalent to Phil Hartman if you ever see her sketch stuff on there. She's great. I always wanted to see her break out in bigger film roles, but she feels like she's so forced in here. Her lines she's given are not really that funny or creative at all. I don't know if it was just the movie in general doing that, but speaking of the casting, they bring back most of the cast from the original movie in cameos. They're fine in this. There's nothing really terrible about them, but you get the sense that they didn't have any real reasoning to be there except to just be there. Like, you have Bill Murray, who's playing a famous debunker in this, and you think he's going to be kind of like the Walter Peck in this, but then they just kill him off and he's never heard from again. I mean, Bill Murray notoriously said that he would never do a Ghostbusters 3 unless they killed him off, which they do in here, so mission accomplished, I guess. The cameos by Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, and Annie Potts are okay, but nothing spectacular. They even have a bust of Harold Ramis early on in the film, which is a nice little tribute to him. The cameos are okay, but you would expect them to be better played out the way this movie does. And that's why I think Ghostbusters Afterlife and Frozen Empire did a much better job of utilizing those cameos into an actual story. I mean, Ghostbusters Afterlife is still one of my favorite movies of this decade. I mean, it's a movie where you get to see the Ghostbusters one last time, even though Harold Ramis has been dead for nearly 7 years since that movie came out. When he shows up again in ghost form with the Ghostbusters fighting in the final climax, that scene, that's one of the few moments in this franchise where I literally shed a tear, because it's just like, that's a beautiful shot of them all there once again. It's just like, it's a great movie. Those movies are great. This one, the male characters in this movie are not really written well at all. They're kind of written as evil, stupid, one-sided, or just plain dumb. And I get it. It's a female Ghostbusters movie, but it would be nice to have at least one male character that was written like a normal person, just once. The references to the original movie are okay, but then you have some that are just forced in there. Like, there's a part where McKinnon's character's proton pack says 1984 on it. Get it? Because the original film was released in 1984. Yeah, that wasn't really all that clever. There are parts where they try to force those references in there, and they're not very clever. They make 2 references to the original movie in the credits. In the new Ghost Trap, there's a computer saying, recent interactions, D. Barrett, V. Clortho, in reference to Dana Barrett and Vince Clortho from the first movie. In the final post-credit scene, Leslie Jones' character is listening to a ghost encounter and asks the girls, "What's Zool?" Not only making a reference to a monster in the first movie, but also teasing him for a possible sequel, which, I was scared they were going to pull a Star Trek Into Darkness and force him in there like they did with Khan in that sequel, but of course they never made that movie because the film, unfortunately, was a loss for Sony. I think they ended up losing about, I think it said $70 million. Yeah, they lost about $70 million. Even though the movie wasn't a flop overall, it did okay. I mean, the Ghostbusters box office has never been that strong, even with since the original film. The original film, of course, was a monster hit, but after that, Ghostbusters, I think, made like $234 million when it first came out. No movie has ever come in the franchise has ever come close to that. So this one's kind of right in the middle, I think. It still did decent business, but yeah, they lost a lot of money, especially considering the budget overall, but it was probably better that they didn't do a sequel, just for the fact that I felt like they were going to do pull the Star Trek Into Darkness route. The biggest fault of the movie in general is that the editing is really, really bad. There's parts of this movie that feel like they were clipped out of the movie at the last minute to make for a specific runtime, or just change it because the studio forced them to do it. Like the opening scene, where you think it's going to be like the opening of the first 2 Ghostbusters movies. You have Timothy Simmons from Veep, in a situation where the museum he's in comes to life, and it's all these ghosts and all that. And it looks like you're going to get to see the Ghostbusters theme, just like the previous movies. You're waiting for the Ghostbusters theme song to start playing with the logo to pop up, and no, it's just a generic-ass title card. You had one job with the opening, and you couldn't even do that. Even the later movies know that you have to have that great opening there. I mean, the screaming and then turning into the Ghostbusters logo. Like, that's part of what you go to see these movies for. They couldn't even follow that. And it's weird because they try to make it seem like that this is supposed to take place in an alternate universe where the events of the previous films didn't happen, but they're literally making references to the original movie all throughout the film. It makes no sense. Like, the biggest WTF editing moment of this film literally comes towards the end of the second act where, Rowan kills himself and the Ghostbusters are being fake arrested by Homeland Security, and then it just cuts to Kristen Wiig in a hotel room. Now, you think that maybe the Ghostbusters got sent to a psych ward, like what happened in Ghostbusters 2, but then it just cuts back to them at their headquarters where Melissa McCarthy's character is not arrested, not under house arrest, she's just there. So what happened? What was the point of that hotel scene? There had to have been a scene that got cut out because it makes no sense whatsoever for the scene to be played out like this. Now, I haven't seen the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray version of it, which I do have. I have that movie on Blu-ray, and I know there's like an extended edition on there, but I got a feeling that if I watched that extended edition, it's probably on there, because it makes no sense why it's edited this way in the movie. The editing in this is god-awful. Like, if there's anything that's terrible about it, it's the editing. Like, that's the one thing about this movie that makes me go like, wow, this movie is so badly edited. But other than that, though, all that controversy, all that build-up that everyone was saying this was going to be a disaster, this wasn't a disaster. It's good summer escapism entertainment. It's coming out in the middle of the summertime. People want to get inside of a movie theater and go sit down while it's 100 degrees outside in an air-conditioned theater and have a good time. And this movie definitely is that. The actors work very well. The visuals look nice. There is good comedy. The action is nicely shot. It's a decently enjoyable film. It's nowhere near any of the best Ghostbusters movies, and like I said, it's the worst of the series, but it's still not a terrible movie by any means necessary. I'm kind of glad it wasn't in that development hell 3 they've been trying to make for several years, because they did eventually make it with the video game, which I think the video game is a perfect Ghostbusters 3. I mean, that's the best way to do that version in general, instead of trying to do it now on a big screen after so many years of trying to do it. I had a good time watching this. I think the people who never knew what Ghostbusters was prior, or have never seen the original movies, I think could enjoy it more than the so-called Ghostbusters fans that went off so badly on this for no reason whatsoever, because it's not a terrible movie by any means. It has a lot of problems, but you know what? So did the first 2 movies. So did the more recent movies. There has not been a bad Ghostbusters movie. Just hasn't. Sorry. You don't want to hear it, and I can't wait to see all the negative criticisms I'm going to get for it, but I'm sorry. Sue me. I don't care. I think this is a good movie. It's not the best Ghostbusters movie, but you know what? It's much better than people make it out to be. So there you go. That's my thoughts on the 2016 Ghostbusters. I'm clocking in now at 15+ minutes on this, so better move on to our next movie, because there were other releases released this weekend, and one of them being Bryan Cranston as the Infiltrator.
Federal agent.
Greetings up.
My mission is to infiltrate their organization.
Welcome to the United States.
And then take them down.
This is a suicide mission.
The Infiltrator, rated R, July 13th.
I think their first mistake with this movie is opening it on July 13th, a Wednesday. A movie like this does not need to open on a Wednesday. You save the Wednesday openings for summer blockbusters, comedy sequels, animated movies. Not a crime thriller like this. And to have this be one of your big summer marquee pictures, there's a whole bunch of other entertainment out there for people to go see rather than this. Now, does that mean the movie is terrible? No. It's definitely better than this director's last movie. This is Brad Furman, who directed Runner, which was not a good movie, but The Lincoln Lawyer was easily his best movie overall. In this movie, Bryan Cranston stars as a U.S. Customs Service special agent in the 1980s, using his undercover alias Bob Musella to become a pivotal player for drug lords laundering their dirty cash. Later, he infiltrates the world's largest cartel and helps expose the money laundering organization of drug lord Pablo Escobar. It takes down the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, which had secretly taken illegal ownership of First American bank shares in Washington, D.C. You have characters played by Diane Kruger, John Leguizamo, Benjamin Bratt, Amy Ryan, Jason Isaacs, and Olivia Dukakis is in this movie too. Like I said, it's not a bad movie, and actually it's probably one of the better films released by Broad Green Pictures, who was kind of trying to make their way with a couple of movies. Some of them were not, most of them were not that great. A Walk in the Woods is one of those examples. But this one, it's alright. Is it a movie that I would open up as a summer blockbuster? No. I don't think it's going to be a movie that's going to be a summer contender. And unfortunately, the film didn't do very well. It performed very poorly at the box office. It didn't even make back its $28 million budget. It only brought in $22 million in general. But the film isn't terrible. It's not great either. And like I said, I think this director's best film is The Lincoln Lawyer. And with a movie with Bryan Cranston in it, coming off of the end of Breaking Bad, you really expect so much more from it. And it just doesn't show in this film in general. The story is an intriguing one in general, but it just kind of goes down that been there, done that type of territory before. It just didn't work for me in the end. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is kind of what I expected to be when I saw those trailers. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, but certainly could have been a whole lot worse overall. So that is The Infiltrator. So let's go ahead and move on to our last film that we have here, and that's Woody Allen's latest film, and that is Cafe Society.
Unrequited love kills more people in any year than tuberculosis.
Love is not rational. You lose control.
Life is a comedy written by a sadistic comedy writer.
Cafe Society, rated PG-13, in theaters July 15th.
You can kind of use the same reactions from The Infiltrator to this, except change it around a little bit, because this is a very different movie than The Infiltrator is. This is Woody Allen's latest film, where you have Jesse Eisenberg as a young man who moves to Hollywood in the 1930s, where he falls in love to the assistant to his uncle, a powerful talent agent. Characters are played by Kristen Stewart, Steve Carell, Blake Lively, Parker Posey, Corey Stoll. It's not quite up to par with Midnight in Paris or Blue Jasmine, but it's better than some of his other movies as of late. It's better than some of Woody Allen's more recent films, Magic in the Moonlight and Irrational Man, which I thought were very underwhelming films in general. It just kind of gives you everything you expect from a decent Woody Allen movie. It's certainly nowhere near his best works overall. He has made a lot better movies, but compared to some of the more recent films he had done between Blue Jasmine and this, it's a nice return to form from him overall. Nothing really more to say about it except it's alright. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, but it's definitely worth checking out if you want to see some good Woody Allen movies from this decade overall. So, not much more to say about that. That's Cafe Society for you. Speaking of Star Trek, that's going to be one of the movies we'll take a look at next time on Time About the Movies, as Justin Lin, fresh from the Fast and Furious series, comes in to take over from J.J. Abrams, who was working on Star Wars The Force Awakens at the time, for the third and, so far, the last film in the Star Trek series, not just in the reboot trilogy, but also in general that has been released, Star Trek Beyond, which, again, was not a bad movie when it came out, and most people have kind of forgotten about it, but it's actually not that bad overall. But we'll touch on that movie. We'll also touch on the horror film Lights Out, based off of a really good short, and made for a really good movie, directed by the guy who would eventually give us Annabelle Creation and the Shazam movies. We have a not-so-great movie with the most recent installment of the Ice Age series, at least until we get to Boiling Point next year. Ice Age Collision Course, and yeah, talk about a franchise that is overstayed its welcome big time. We'll take a look at that one. We'll also take a look at Absolutely Fabulous the movie. I completely forgot that there was a movie based off of Ab Fab that came out in 2016, but lo and behold, we'll take a look at it, see if it actually holds up or not. But we'll also take a look at one of the big influential cult hits at the time. Not even cult hit, a big underground action hit at the time, Train to Busan. And is that all we got? I feel like there's one more here. I guess not. I guess it's just those 5 movies. So Star Trek Beyond, Lights Out, Ice Age Collision Course, Ab Fab the movie, Train to Busan. Everybody got that? Good. With all that said, though, thank you so much for watching this with me. And watching this with me. What is wrong with me today? I think that hat did more damage to me than I would have thought. But thank you so much for joining me. How about that on this episode? If you somehow found enjoyment in this, more power to you. But if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, the subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.